that if people understood the impacts of excluding behaviour or not safe environments, they'd be far more likely to do what they could to foster them. So if people understand what can happen or how it feels to be excluded, I think that's a really great way of making people want to be inclusive.
So psychological safety, for those of you that may not be familiar with this concept, is an incredibly important concept overall, but definitely in community building, it is something we come back to time and time again. It's something we're always striving to cultivate. It is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated in any way for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. So it's safe to make mistakes. It's also about being your true self. So being able to bring your authentic self with all of its complexity and multitudes to an online community setting, or the aspects of yourself that are relevant for that community without fear of judgment or being silenced. And we see it in workplaces quite a lot. A lot of leaders might talk a lot about culture and wanting contributions and having a diverse and safe environment. But then those employees, when you poll them anonymously, actually say, I don't feel psychologically safe. I feel there'll be repercussions if I give that feedback or if I speak up. So how can we work on this concept on a regular basis? Anne has a great question here. How can we encourage members to report instances of exclusion or bias without fear of repercussion? So that's psychological safety. How can they put their hand up safely and say, I feel like this is maybe not great from my perspective, or even perhaps an observation they've made about another. Maretha, can we start with you?
Yeah, I think it starts with how we set the scene in our communities. What are those guidelines right at the beginning that we're setting up clear, positive about what respect looks like in this environment? I was speaking earlier about leading by example for moderators, actually by participating actively and respectfully, and making sure that when these things are being raised, that they are being dealt with. By asking those open-ended questions and very, very respectfully and navigating some of these conversations so that the barriers to participation are being addressed and that people are feeling free, if not in the open forum, to at least raise concerns with the moderator. So that moderator plays an extremely important role, not only in setting up the guidelines and making sure, well, we'll probably talk about onboarding a little bit later, but how do we onboard our people that they all know exactly what the expectations are? Yes. And I think that creating that learning mindset, in that when you are being asked to maybe shift some of the tone, when you are being called out for bringing some privilege to the conversation and so forth, that actually you have enough of a learning mindset to take that on board. And those are the kinds of things that need to be set up right from the beginning and then modeled by your moderator.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things we noticed, so at ACM, we train moderators and community managers all over the country for different community settings. And, we do notice that, a lot of them, perhaps they've had some experience and they come to it often with an understandable view that, moderation, as I said, is not necessarily too nuanced, that it, is punitive first and foremost. So this idea that, somebody does something wrong, they're going to get a strike against them in some fashion. There's some punishment for that. Perhaps they even might be asked to, withheld from the community or asked to leave a community potentially if the offence is serious enough. And I'm not saying that doesn't have its place, of course does, but there's an enormously vast spectrum in between there where we are required to really moderate in public in the fashion that you describe, and in private in public. So moderate with individuals through private channels, moderate with small groups, moderate out loud with the entire community, so we can create those models, those social norms, and embed these lessons, and convey that it's okay. It's okay to make these mistakes, and we can learn from them together. That it's not sort of a one and done. You said something really inappropriate, you're out. That's the end of the story. And we can account for that in our governance and critically, as you say, in those practices. Are there any other tips you might offer, either of you, around how you feel community managers can encourage that open participation?
Have some check-ins, regular check-ins, using some surveys, polls, informal discussions to just go, how can we improve participation? yeah, I think that that is really important to make sure that you've got those loops, that you close the loops around for the things that might be unseen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Fiona, did you want to weigh in with anything here?
Well, I feel that if people understood the impacts of excluding behavior or not safe environments, they'd be far more likely to do what they could to foster them. So if people understand what can happen or how it feels to be excluded, I think that's a really great way of making people want to be inclusive. So there's education there, there's I guess being really clear about, because we have a lot of buzzwords that we use, but what does that really mean? What does it look like in this community? What does that mean, psychological safety here? Give me some examples. Be really transparent, I guess, about how that can show up positively or negatively, so that people really understand the role they have to play.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think one of the things we've found a lot of success with over the years is, to both of your points, making sure that you are that explicit and that you contextualize it for your community, of course, so that those you give directly relevant examples to your community. Obviously not naval, but kind of you are shaping it to suit that setting. Really are very clear about, oh, that's what it means to me, to us in this scenario, not in some abstract sense or some other community that isn't ours. And then also sort of having that regular feedback loop, I think, is also really important. So creating content in various forms, be it through shared experiences, through content for discussions, through events potentially. They could be synchronous or asynchronous to be equitable. We've got to be time zone equitable as well. So that you can just actively model and demonstrate that on a regular basis. And of course, involving your members in that. So as members do develop those understandings and are happy to speak up and have done things right, or maybe even are comfortable sharing something they did a little bit wrong, wherever those comfort levels exist, obviously talking to them about it, involving them in the discussion, exclusively sitting on your shoulders. The other thing I would as a tip is running regular checks is really useful. So that's something we do in community management. They're not very complex to run, and there are folks out there that can help you run them if you're not sure how to do it. What look is they measure sensitivity, and one of the key things that they measure is, am I psychologically safe? Do I feel that I can be myself here in this context? So that, and it is done pseudonymously. So that, as you said, Maretha, giving the members a chance to weigh in on that in a way that's safe, and potentially raise their hand or talk to issues that they might be feeling that they're not necessarily comfortable about talking to you directly or to the entire community about. And then you can take some informed action from there and let that impact the next things that you do as a community manager. There are a range of techniques and tactics to address that if you do see that psychological safety is not present or is having some trouble or is waning for some reason.